To celebrate Nurses Week and to say thank you for keeping us healthy and safe, Bailey Nelson is offering Gritty Nurse listeners 25% off optical glasses and sunglasses now until May 31st, 2021.
They offer prescription glasses from $145 Canadian and have stores throughout BC, Alberta, and Ontario.
They also sell prescription and non prescription glasses online to all provinces in Canada and to the US.
All you have to do is enter Gritty Nurse when you check out online. That's spelled GRITTYNURSE.
Or mention that discount code when you're in store to get the deal. Visit baileynelson.com to book an eye exam or check out their glasses.
Hello, is this thing on?
Do you think they can hear us?
Nah, let's say it again. Hi, and welcome to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, an unfiltered discussion related to health and healthcare. My name is Amie.
And my name is Sara.
And we are your podcast hosts.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, or any other podcast listening platform, don't forget to subscribe so you can get updates to when we have our latest episodes. Also, don't forget to rate and review us.
And if you like what you're hearing and you love our advocacy work, don't forget to go to www.grittynurse.com and click on the donate button.
As little as $1 or $2 a month for a total of $12 a year will help us with our monthly podcast costs, such as website hosting, our hosting platform,
audio equipment, and the time and energy it takes us to put out good quality episodes. We thank you and we appreciate you. Hi again, and what a week we have had, Sara. It has been a beast of a week. I am excited as we are rolling into nursing week. I think we're going to be going into it really strong this year. There's been some really great advocacy work that we've been seeing, and I am more proud of this profession than I have been in the past 10 plus years. I think that, we're finally seeing some change being mobilized, and it's actually a really, really exciting time. And you know what? I'm really excited for the guests that we have today. What they're doing is powerful. Like, I literally just had chills up my spine just even thinking about some of the great work that they're doing, but also unfortunate that it had to come to the situation it was. So Sara, could you please take it away?
Yeah, and I just want to add that we haven't had a nurse on for a while. We've kind of, we've had different types of guests, and I'm really excited that we have a frontline nurse joining us today, someone who has been channeling a lot of the things that we talk about in terms of advocacy, in terms of speaking out, in terms of, doing what is right. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of our unions actually prevent us from striking. And what is unique about this situation is we're going to bring on a guest today who is actually striking right now as part of what she's standing for. And so I'm actually going to let Brittany introduce herself tonight and tell us a little bit of her experience about being a nurse.
So hi guys, my name is Brittany Glazier. I am a registered practical nurse, currently working for BON Sarnia Lambton. I have been doing this for about 7.5 years now, 6.5 with BON. Prior to that, I have worked in hospitals, nursing homes, women's homeless shelters. I've supervised PSWs. I feel like I've done a little bit of everything.
That is quite the resume, I have to say. I don't think people realize that registered practical nurses can do all those things. When a lot of people think of RPNs, they think of long-term care. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind. But it is a very diverse profession. And as you have shown us, there are many different places that you can work.
I think a lot of it is about pushing yourself and going where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is like Sara and I have had these conversations all the time where we are talking about, I think when we talk about scope of practice and when we talk about, the ability and the variety that RPNs can bring to the table, like we're always constantly advocating for the work and the value that RPNs have. So I'm really excited that we actually have you here today. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about the strike and kind of what led up to it.
Absolutely. So as of May the 1st, we actually walked off the job. It has been months in the making. We've been without a collective agreement since 2019. March 31st, 2019, our contract ended. We did try to go into negotiation shortly after that, and then the pandemic hit. So that kind of halted everything for us. So in the last few months, our union has brought our employer back to the table to try to kind of come up with a fair and equal deal, which obviously has not happened. So most contracts and most unions and employers have a no strike, no lockout contract and agreement. So there's a whole lot of steps that we had to go through first before getting through to here.
I mean, that's really interesting because we don't know anything about it. Like when you say that you've been without a contract, what does that mean exactly? Like, what sort of documents or standards do you fall back on when there is no contract?
So we work based on the contract that has been expired, but having no contract, so your contract gives you your wage increases, things like it does talk about scope of practice, vacation time for community nurses. There's a lot of language around our, kilometers that we get paid to drive to and from because there's days that I drive upwards to 200 kilometers in the run of a shift. So
Wow.
we just went about our day and continued to work throughout it because nobody wants to have to go out on strike or you don't just stop working because you don't have a contract. You put faith and trust in your union and in your employer to get back to the table. I'm not a union person. I don't work for the union. I've never been part of like I'm part of the union because I work for the organization, but I don't have anything to do with that. I've just been a frontline worker working through this.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I think this is where I would like ask the question to you too before we kind of get into some of the other questions is that about that whole um you know can't strike, no lockout, right? So like in the Ontario Nurses Association collective agreement, there's that premise as well that nurses can't strike, nurses can't walk off the job, and I completely understand like what that may look like. But how did it play out differently for your organization, sorry, your union, and your ability to actually to strike?
We had gone so long without a contract, and then we kind of came to a stalemate. So the offer that was on the table from the employer actually was taking away more from us than what it was giving to us. So our union brought it to us and said, "What do you guys want to do?" And we said, "We're not accepting it." And at that point, we involved an arbitrator. So we had an arbitrator come in, somebody who doesn't work for our union or VON, and try to kind of mitigate everything and see if we could come to a conclusion. And our employer was unwilling to budge.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, at this point, our union thought, well, you have to vote on a strike, and it has to be 51% or more voting to strike. So they brought it to us. We are a very small group. There's 22 of us that are currently employed. So it's not like there's a whole lot of, us out there willing to do this, but we all sat down, we talked about it, we talked about it collectively, we talked about it with our union. And if we're not going to stand up for ourselves, nobody else is going to.
Absolutely. That's what I say all of the time. And it's so important that you brought that up because I think as nurses, we sort of expect other people to understand what we're going through and to know what it's like, with all the struggles that we face. But ultimately, we are the best people to stand up for ourselves. And, like you said, if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it. Can you give us some details about what exactly you were asking for that didn't get met in this contract? Like, what did they bring to the table that they were willing to offer versus what were you looking for?
Well, guys, I don't want to blow you away with this, but we are asking for 1% wage increase,
Right.
which is equivalent to about 22 cents a year. So, and that's for both the years of our contract being expired. And VON only wanted to do our contract till March 31st, 2021. So we'd still be working without a contract, but then they thought we'd go back into negotiations after a while. On top of that 1% wage increase, we wanted daily overtime for the RPNs. So here's where things get a little sticky. Our RNs have a different union than our RPNs. So our RNs get daily overtime after 7.5 hours. We see a lot of people in the run of a day. So they have daily overtime. They work 1 and 4 weekends. So we were trying to put ourselves on par with that. So we asked for daily overtime, 1 and 4 weekends. And then we actually have a group of our nurses. They're shift nurses. They actually go in and they stay with medically frail children overnight and in schools. So they're sitting with, your cerebral palsies, cystic fibrosis children, children with different needs, frail diabetics, children that need to be tube fed. And they sit in the school system with them. And then they also sit at home with them throughout the night so their parents can sleep. And they work full-time hours, but they're all considered casual employees. So they're not entitled to paid sick time, bereavement leave, benefits. They can't get healthcare benefits through our organization. And, I'm lucky enough that I am a full time visit nurse. I have all those benefits. But at the end of the day, it's not all about me. It's not about all of us that are in the visit nursing program. And, our management team went as far to tell our shift nurses that if they weren't happy with it, to move over to visiting and take a full time position there. They love these kids. Some of these nurses have been with these children for the last 10 to 12 years.
Yeah,
Hmm.
wow.
But they are just as much entitled to these benefits as what we are.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that is what we had asked for. What our employer offered us was a zero point 0.5 lump sum payment for the first year without a contract, which would equal about to, I want to say, $170 for the entire year. And not moving up on the wage grid either. So we stay at what we're making, which visit nurses across Ontario, as far as I believe, are the lowest paid nurses out there with the highest skill sets because we don't know what we're walking into.
Right.
Hmm.
And then a 1% general wage increase for the second year. Yeah, offering us $170 is kind of like a slap in the face. And then on top of that, they actually wanted to take away 2 of our stat holidays from us. We currently get paid for 11. They wanted to knock us down to 9.
Wow.
And they wanted to take away some of our kilometers. So, how it works is when I'm driving to my first patient of the day, I don't get paid for the first 15 kilometers
Right.
because nobody gets paid to drive to or from work.
Hmm.
Completely understandable. They wanted to change that to the first 25 kilometers. So keep in mind, we get paid 42 cents a kilometer. So that's $4.20 some of these nurses are missing out on each way to and from their home.
Wow.
Hmm.
I mean, I think like you said, it kind of is a slap in the face. No, like it is a slap in the face. It is absolutely disrespectful that they would even come to you with those types of, that they say, hey, here are the things that we're going to put on the table, and it's less than what we were giving you before. Are they not living this pandemic too? Like it just it just begs the question to say to them, like, hey, we are people, we're working very hard. Like you said, you don't know what you might be going into. We actually had Kathy Crow on our podcast a couple weeks ago that was saying the same things. Like community nurses have to have highly complex skills because when they're out in the community, they have no idea. They can be coming into a very dangerous situation. They can be coming into a situation where, there are high needs for that patient. And I think that, again, this is where people don't understand the value behind the job itself. They don't understand the value of the nurse walking in, doing the type of work that they're doing. And to undervalue you at less, like the fact that, like, right now, Ontario nurses, in terms of like our ends, we are trying to get out of Bill 124. So we are being awarded this less than 1% wage increase. And it almost like stabs me in my soul to hear that you're just asking for 1%. Like it's like, at least give us the 22 cents. Like it sounds so crazy. And it's just like, I think this is why we do this. Like we have to talk about this stuff. It's so horrible to think that, you could be in a situation where people want to give you less during a much more stressful time. It just shows that people are out of touch and don't really truly know or understand the value of nursing.
And it's actually interesting how they could even justify this. Like, I'm curious as to how they presented it to you, that it would even make sense for you to accept this offer. It just seems crazy to me.
So the way it was presented to our union was the fact that so right now we're kind of in our own little group, and then there's what's called centralized bargaining. So we would actually lose our local representation and go into that bargaining, and they're like, "Oh, guys, it's a great deal," and then we looked at it and we're like, "No, no." So, and we struggle because, our employer, they're always sending out emails about dear valued employee. VON's big thing is that we care. We do care. We care about our patients, and we care about their families, and we care about the job that we do. We care that we make them look good. It's not the managers and the people sitting in the office that are out there seeing these patients that make VON look good. It's the people on the front lines.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like they're saying like, so like you guys look good to make them look good, but they're not willing to do good, which is kind of really messed up, right? I mean, it's I find that this is actually it's probably not unique to VON that, the people that are working the hardest are getting the least amount of compensation, financial compensation. And I think there needs to be a lot of change when it comes to understanding what, what and asking for what we deserve.
It's scary in nursing to ask for what you deserve because you're always so scared of the lashback that you're going to get from patients and their families and the community because we're nurses. We are told that if we cared about our patients, we would be out there seeing them, we wouldn't strike. And unfortunately, we've heard that many a times. But I'm sorry, but on top of being a nurse, I'm a parent. I have 3 children that I am raising on my own, and I need to pay my bills. And I need to maintain my car maintenance in order to go see these patients. I need to make sure that, you know what, my boys want to play hockey and I want them to.
Hmm.
So we have to stand up for ourselves. But in the community and the way people look at it is that because it's not a common thing, you hear about lots of other places going on strike and nobody bats an eye. You hear about a healthcare organization, you hear about nurses walking off the job, and all of a sudden it's this big thing.
Hmm.
Well, it is a big thing. And we didn't take this lightly, but it is about time we stand up for ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that, nursing has long been silent and is overdue for an overhaul in the way that we do things. I think like right now I was seeing, there's lots of conversations about financial compensation, and people are concerned about like, is this the right look? Is this the right optics? We are supposed to be this all caring profession. It's like, of course we care. We absolutely inherently care about our patients. But at the end of the day, like, it is our job, it is our profession, but we still have to put food on the table. We still have to pay our mortgage or our rent. Like it's not and women for whatever reason are really afraid to negotiate salary. It's like this elephant in the room. And actually I used to have trouble with it too. And I can't remember who was that said to me. They're like, whatever they always pitch to you, they're always pitching you like the lowest that they possibly can give to you, and that you always should be like, asking for what you believe that you're worth. And I think it's time that nurses ask for what we believe that we're worth, and we show what we're worth. And I think this is a long-standing conversation that we should have been having a long, long time ago, and I'm so glad that we're having it today.
I almost feel like there's a double standard because you hear all the time about all different types of other employees going on strike, transit workers, you hear about teachers, you hear about all different professions. And I think the striking thing is that people don't realize that nurses never go on strike. And so when they do go on strike, it becomes this huge deal. And Brittany, you said that you have 3 kids, you have your bills to pay. I don't think you should have to justify why you need to be paid more. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Everything is going up. The cost of living is going up. And so it only makes sense that you're asking for what you fairly deserve in order to be able to pay your bills in this world. So, I mean, I'm really glad that you are able to verbalize that and have this conversation with us today because there are so many nurses that we've met along the way with our podcast that are really, really afraid to speak out. And so I just wanted to say that, you make us proud. What you're doing, what your colleagues are doing, this is really unprecedented, and we appreciate everything that you're doing for nursing right now.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of circle back to one thing before I kind of ask you our next question. I can't imagine nurses that work in the hospital actually walking off the job. Obviously, I think that's where there is risk, right? I think I couldn't imagine like 50% of ICU nurses just saying like, you know what, it's really horrible here. I'm going to just leave, because I think at that point there is that visceral concern that, there are patients that you have to leave. But like, how did that actually work? So
It had to be a certain amount of time since our contract has elapsed. Most healthcare organizations don't let their contracts go 2 or more years without being renegotiated. And this is not an abnormal thing for VON. All of our contracts usually go, at least a year before they go back into negotiations, and that's the VON way. Back in 2016, they blamed it on the financial crisis that they were having, where VON actually had to close a lot of their sites in other provinces, with the exception of Ontario and Nova Scotia. And then you laugh because you look at the Sunshine List from 2016 and you see that to 2017, and a lot of their higher up managers, made $50 to $100,000 more after they closed a bunch of organizing.
Oh, interesting.
wow, that's very, very shady sounding. and unfortunate, really, right? I mean, I think whenever you're one of the things I say to Sarah is like whenever you're messing with people's money, that's when people get really, really angry. Like it's just like you start messing with the people's purse strings, executives, they don't want to hear it, but it's like we actually have to call some of those things out. Where are you at now? So you've been on strike since about a week. Where have you gotten any further today?
So we're now 8 days in. VON has made no effort to come back to the table. Our union rep has gone to them several times saying, you know what, when you guys are ready, I'm here, I'm willing. They actually are paying for private security to sit at their VON offices for 12 hours a day because us 22 nurses guys are pretty freaking scary. And right now, our Sarnia site is actually pulling in nurses, RNs, not RPNs. So there's a huge wage gap difference between RNs and RPNs. So they're actually pulling in RNs from London, Windsor, and Chatham to cover some of our patients. They're paying for their hotels, their meals. I would guarantee that even one day of the money that they're putting out to keep us out on strike would actually pay for our 22 nurses 22-cent an hour raises for the year.
I bet you that too, because I was gonna say, hold on. So they were willing to, give you this hundred and whatever dollars extra for the year, like all these really crappy provisions, and now they are paying for nurses' hotels, RNs' hotels, their food, their travel, paying this increased wage for like it just boggles my mind. It's like what? You would rather do this than actually sit down and say, yeah, you know what they're asking for isn't unreasonable. That's unreal.
Our employer actually sat across from the table and told our union representative, including our union steward, who is one of our nurses that work with us side by side, and actually sat there and told them that it's not that they can't afford to give us the raise, they don't want to set the precedent for other sites to ask for this.
Wow.
So this point 0.5 lump sum payment and their 1% general wage increase is kind of like their go-to for
Wow.
everybody.
Hmm.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't know about everybody else, but and again, not using the pandemic as a playing tool, but I just worked. I worked more than I should have had to. I didn't have a paycheck with less than 96 hours prior to me going out on strike because we're short. Because where do you think these people that they're unloading from the hospitals go? They come to community nurses. So for them to not want to set a precedent, well, what precedent are they setting for us now? So you're more than willing to fork out money for private security. There's two of them that sit out there for 12 hours a day.
So not only so they're forking out the money for the security, they're forking out the money for the nurses
Right.
because they don't want to set a precedent.
It's disheartening and it is disgusting. And I feel bad because it is not the people in my office who are making these
Right.
choices. It is the people above them.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. It's unreal. So, what are some of the steps that you think nurses can take to advocate for their working conditions?
Stop being scared to stand up for yourself. And you know what? I'm not just talking about, us being on strike. So we have been advocating for the last actually increasingly over the last few months. So in Sarnia, the beginning of the year was a really bad year here. Within 4 weeks, we had four murders.
Whoa.
And here we are going out at 11, 12, midnight to run IV antibiotics, to go see palliative patients. And our palliative patients are the ones that trump all. So, I mean, you can live without your IV antibiotics for one night, you won't die. But our palliative patients need us. So, we got scared. So we went to our employer and we said, what are you going to do? How are you going to make sure that I'm safe when I'm going out or that I'm safe driving to Port Franks or Grand Bend when I live in Sarnia at 2 o'clock in the morning to go see a palliative patient in a pain crisis? I think, again, as nurses, we're so scared to speak
Hmm.
up for
Hmm.
ourselves because
Right.
we don't do that. We are here to care for everybody else. Well, I'd hate to tell everybody, and I haven't been doing this as long as a lot of people, but I'm never going to be afraid to say, hey, you know what? Something's not right. I don't feel safe doing this. It goes the same if they're asking you to do something outside of your scope of practice or something that you're not comfortable with. Absolutely not.
But Brittany, they teach us this. Like this is actually inherent to nursing. Like advocacy is actually a huge part of nursing. We are taught time and time again to advocate for our patients, right? Like, for example, we see an order that we think is messed up. We advocate and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Or, we're seeing something in terms of a decline in their condition, that we advocate and we speak to the doctors, or we call them in the middle of the night and be like, something seems up. That is inherently a part of the work that we're doing. We also need to do that for ourselves. Like, it is unbelievable that we suck so bad at advocating for ourselves. And it's only like really with, I'll be honest, with the pandemic, that we're seeing more and more nurses saying, no, I am tired. I'm sick of
Hmm.
doing this. I need for someone to hear me. And you're absolutely right. We do need to advocate for ourselves, and we need to do a better job of doing it. And we need to stop being so scared, because really, I always say it's like there are bedtime boogeyman stories about nurses talking out, and there's nothing that's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen if you are saying, here is a way that we can change and create better health outcomes. Here's a way that we can improve patient care. Here's a way to keep me safe at night when I go out at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, that's crazy that we have to be begging people and pleading with their employers to say, hey, we're trying to do the best here, but we need a little bit of help. It's unreal.
And I think that you touched on something that we haven't talked a ton about on the podcast, which is violence in nursing. Nursing is actually a very risky profession when you think about the number of times that nurses are attacked by patients, by families. Like, it is actually a lot higher than people realize. And it's because we don't have the supports that we need. So I find it ironic that you're saying that VON is paying for security guards to sit outside the office when you've just mentioned that you may be going into very dangerous neighborhoods that are unsafe, and there is no support for you. There's no protection for you or your safety.
So in that part, I laugh at it, but it's such a serious matter. And I laugh because, a few months ago, we actually brought that to our manager. I said, you know what, sometimes when we're out, like, I don't feel the need to go run a one-time IV antibiotic dose at 11 o'clock at night near a known drug house. I don't. I feel like that's my safety. And we were told to read our manual, our
What?
manual that tells us to, always be on the lookout for danger. I know. It killed me. We actually, our union was all over that because I was like, no. But thankfully, we have such a great and amazing team that anytime that I've actually felt unsafe going out at night, I phone a coworker, because this is what
Right.
nurses do for each other. This is not what management does or a company does, but this is what nurses do for each other because we care. I can call any one of my coworkers at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, hey guys, I'm tired. I haven't really slept. I need to drive to Thetford. I'm really not sure where I'm going. Or, I need to go downtown and it's kind of a sketchy neighborhood. And they'll be like, okay, come pick me up.
Wow.
Really?
Come pick me up. I will come with you. Absolutely. Because
Right.
we are a team. It's again, it's not our company. It's not our managers. It is us. It is us and how we work together. In in nursing, again, you speak up and you're so scared that people are going to look down on you because you don't know what you're doing or because you're scared. But within our group, we're actually such a strong group that way that everybody has actually, at one time or another, helped each other during a difficult visit. Or if it was, say, an unstable palliative patient. I do a lot of palliative care nursing, but not all of us do. They will call and be like, hey, do you mind joining me? Absolutely not. Let's go and set up that SRK kit. Let's get their meds drawn
Yeah.
up. Let's do it together.
That is actually amazing. That is going above and beyond, because where I thought you were going with the story is that you were going to say that you called a colleague and they stayed on the phone with you until you got to your client's house. But you're saying that you actually pick each other up and you sit there and you wait in the car, I'm assuming, or even go inside the house with them to make sure that they're okay.
Absolutely. And it depends on where you're at, whether they sit in the car or come inside and in your comfort level. And again, it's nurses supporting nurses, right? And we need to do that. Nurses shouldn't eat their young.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think I've been saying that we are in this together. I've said it like so many times, and I feel like I am, sometimes it's falling on deaf ears. We are in this together. Like, the whole reason we are advocating is to lift our profession up, to seek out more help and resources, and to like make sure that we have better patient outcomes. Like, I just, oh, don't get me started on like the we shouldn't be eating our young, but like that, is how nursing should be. We should be looking after one another, out for our best interest, and supporting one another. That is key. And I mean, the fact that you guys are doing this and they won't give you 22 cents, these people should be ashamed of themselves.
We think so too. But this all goes back to why we're doing this, why we're taking a stand, and the fact that our group is that strong, that we can stand together and say, you know what, I know my worth.
Absolutely.
I do. You could go work in a hospital and you would make $8 to $10 more an
Right.
hour compared to what we make in community nursing. Same with nursing homes. Nursing homes pay more.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know what? I walk into people's houses and I don't know whether I have to run an IV antibiotic, if I have to look at a wound and decide right then and there what to put on it. You could walk into a catastrophic
Yeah.
event.
Wow.
And you know what? It's all nice and fine that you can try to phone somebody or send an email, but you might not get an answer.
Jeez. I mean, it's beyond me that you have to go to, or not even just you, but nurses have to go to this length to ask for help and support and to be supported. It's I don't believe you're asking too much, and I don't believe what you're asking for is unreasonable, especially when executives take home more than six figures in some of these organizations.
And even looking back on it, I mean, I think in the past 5 to 6 years, I want to say we've had a 42-cent increase. So it's not even like we've been getting these major pay raises. We're not even staying up with cost of
Wow.
living. We fall way below that. Again, we want to fight for what we believe is right.
I hear that.
So, Brittany, what does it look like right now to be on strike? Because with the pandemic, like how does that actually look? Are you outside the office every day? Do you have picket signs? I'm just curious as to what has been happening this week.
So we have been very, very, very respectful of the fact that we are in a stay-at-home order right now. That being said, we are still legally allowed to exercise our rights and stand out. So typically we're out there 3 to 4 nurses at a time, all 6 feet apart, all with masks on. And we stand out there and we stand out there for several hours a day. Sometimes we'll go for a few hours in the morning. Sometimes we'll go for a few hours in the afternoon. I'm not going to lie. We have not made this easy on the employer to, be able to pay their security a little bit less. So we just keep showing up at different times because
Clever.
if they're going to make this move, we're going to make them pay for it. So we tend to go at different times, but we stand out there. And the support that we have gotten from other local organizations, from the community, I mean, we've had, postal workers show up with coffee and donuts for us. We had firemen show up with donuts for us the other day. We had lunch dropped off. It is amazing to see, but we are out there because we want our story to be heard and we want people to understand and people to know what is going on because VON is a not for profit organization. A lot of what they do is based on
Right.
charities and
Mm-hmm.
receiving from the public. I'm sorry, but if you can't pay your nurses even a living wage, again, 22 cents an hour, then do we really want these people coming here?
Sometimes when I hear these things, it's just I think people don't really truly understand what's happening in healthcare and what happens, and what does the day of the life of a nurse look like. Community nurse, a nurse who works at a hospital, a nurse who works in whatever field. And I think that these are all eye-opening opportunities to tell your story, to share
Mm-hmm.
your perspective, and to let the public and let other people know what's really happening. So I am so glad that you came on. You guys keep doing what you're doing, keep advocating, keep pushing. 22 cents is what they're asking for. Come on, like, make this happen, do the right thing. We always say that, you know what, there's no better time than now to do what is right. If you still have the opportunity, that you should do something about it. And I think that, you know what, I really hope that they make the right decision here.
Absolutely. And
We do too.
I just wanted to ask you one last question, and that is, if people listening want to support you or help you in any way, what would you like people to do?
So the Liuna Local 3000 is our union representative right now. So if you check out their Facebook page or their Twitter or their Instagram, they have all kinds of tips and tricks. And it's just voicing your opinion. Our hashtag has been I stand with VON nurses because we want the community to be behind us. We want everybody to know that this is not something that we came up with overnight. We honestly, all of us have lost sleep over this. Our heart breaks for our patients that are going without the care that they
Right.
need. Our heart breaks for these children who aren't, I'm sorry guys, who aren't getting the care that they need, and for her palliative patients who are being forced out of their homes and into hospice because there's not nurses to care for them. If I could turn around tomorrow and go back to work, I would be happy to do
Yeah.
it. But I'm also not about to back down because nobody else is going to stand up for
I
us.
hear you.
The employer's not going to magically turn around and be like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll give you guys a raise without you asking. No,
Yeah.
we want to get back to what we love.
I hear you. Thank you so much for coming on and telling your story, Brittany, and the story of the other 22 that are standing with you, standing behind you. And I can tell you, you have our support as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that are supporting you as well.
Thank you, guys.